This is a story about silence and the things it protects. The lamp was lit at 9 that morning, but the men who tended it had been gone for 11 days. How does light burn when no one remains to feed the flame? You might think you know the truth about lighthouse keepers, steady men, reliable souls, men who never abandon their posts. But what if everything you've heard has been only half the story? There's a place where the Atlantic swallows islands whole, 20 miles west of Scotland's edge, where 7 hunters rise from the foam. The Flannan Isles. Some call them the 7 hunters. Others whisper, the cursed rocks. I am the keeper of records now, the one who tends the files when the lights go low. I've read every report, every telegram, every theory that tried to explain what cannot be explained. And tonight, I'll share what I've found. But first, let me tell you about the lamp. It was brass, heavy brass, the kind that holds weight in your hands, like a promise. James Ducat polished it every morning. 20 years of lighthouse keeping, and he'd never missed a dawn. December 7th, 1900. The last time anyone saw him smile. Superintendent Muirhead shook their hands. That evening, 3 men on a rock in the Atlantic. Ducat, 43, a father of 4. Marshall, 28, quiet as winter fog. MacArthur, 40, the occasional keeper, with hands like granite. I'll see you at Christmas, Muirhead called from his launch. The brass lamp flickered. In the lighthouse window, a beacon against the coming dark. Have you ever watched someone wave goodbye and felt like you were seeing them for the last time? Before we begin, tell me in the comments below, what time is it where you are right now? And are you brave enough to turn off your lights while you listen? From midnight in Manchester to dawn in Delhi, we're all lighthouse keepers tonight. If you're listening in darkness, you understand what those men felt. If you kept your lights burning, you know why they never left their post. Because this story changes depending on how much darkness you're willing to let in. Now, let us tend the flame together. In this video, we'll unravel a mystery that has haunted historians for generations. First, we'll explore the clues, then dive into the theories. By the end, we'll understand the truth behind it all, but here's what they never told you. Wait until you see what they found in MacArthur's pocket. It changes everything. Stay close, because in just a moment, we'll uncover what the official reports never dared to print. Something the Northern Lighthouse Board buried in files marked "Accident concluded." Notice what the records don't say. Notice the 11 days of silence. Notice how the brass lamp kept burning long after the men who lit it were gone. The Flannan Isles had always been strange. Even before the lighthouse, even before the men, shepherds would ferry their flocks across the water to graze on grass that made sheep birth twins. But they never stayed the night. Never. St. Flannan built a chapel there once. 7th century stone and prayer. The monks abandoned it within a year. They said the wind carried voices. Voices that weren't quite human. When the Northern Lighthouse Board announced construction in 1895, the locals warned them, "Don't disturb the saint's sanctuary. Don't wake what sleeps beneath the waves." The chief inspector died before the lighthouse was finished. Heart failure, they said. But his widow swore. He'd been having nightmares about brass lamps that wouldn't stay lit. Maybe you felt that too. The weight of something watching, the sense that some places were never meant for the living. The lighthouse stood 75 feet tall. Its light could reach 17 nautical miles, 140,000 candle power, cutting through Atlantic storms like a sword through silk. But on December 15th, 1900, the sword went dark, and when the relief ship finally arrived, 11 days later, they found the brass lamp cold, the wicks trimmed, the oil reservoirs full, everything ready to light, except the men who knew how. The captain of the Hesperus sent this telegram: "A dreadful accident has happened at Flannan's. The 3 keepers have disappeared from the island. Poor fellows. They must have been blown over the cliffs." But that was only the first page of the story. Because when Joseph Moore climbed those lighthouse steps, when he pushed open that heavy door, when he saw the brass lamp sitting cold and perfect, he found something the telegram never mentioned, something that made him write in his report: "I cannot explain what I have seen. If you've ever looked at something ordinary, a lamp, a chair, a closed door, and felt like it was holding secrets, stay close. The brass lamp sits in a museum now, polished, silent, still waiting for someone to light it. But sometimes, late at night, when the museum guards have gone home, they say it glows, just for a moment, just long enough to cast 3 shadows on the wall, and when she touched the glass, it blinked." That's where we begin tonight, with shadows that shouldn't exist, and a lamp that remembers what the sea tried to forget. But that was before. They found the 4th body. The brass lamp had been cold for 8 days. When the SS Arctur passed in the night, Captain Holman squinted through the darkness. December 15th. Just past midnight. The light should have been there, cutting through the Atlantic black, like a blade, but there was only emptiness. Have you ever driven past a house at night and noticed all the windows were dark when they should have been warm with life? The Arctur limped into port. 3 days later, hull cracked, cargo shifted. The captain had other concerns than a missing light, but he mentioned it almost as an afterthought. The Flannan light was dark. The harbor master made a note, filed it away, forgot about it. This is where the story changes, where the official timeline begins to fracture, because the lighthouse logbook tells a different tale. The final entry, dated December 15th, 9 a.m. Storm ended. Sea calm. God is over all. But there was no storm. On December 15th, weather stations across the Hebrides recorded clear skies, calm seas, gentle winds from the southeast. So what storm had ended? What sea had calmed? And who wrote those final words? In handwriting that didn't quite match the previous entries. The brass lamp sits heavier in my hands now when I hold it in the archive room. It's cold, always cold, but sometimes the metal feels warm, like it remembers being lit. Joseph Moore knew something was wrong before he reached the island. December 26th, Boxing Day. The Hesperus cut through morning fog, and there was no flag. On the lighthouse pole, no welcoming committee, no provision boxes, waiting to be restocked, no sign of life. "Blow the horn," Captain Harvey ordered. 3 long blasts echoed across the water. The sound bounced off the cliffs and died in the silence. They fired a rocket into the gray sky, red sparks against the clouds. A distress signal answered by nothing. Moore stepped onto the east landing, his boots on wet stone. The only sound, waves against rock. He climbed the concrete steps, 160 of them, each one taking him further from the world of the living. The lighthouse door was closed, the gate was closed, everything closed. But the brass lamp inside was ready, wicks trimmed, oil reservoirs full, waiting for hands that would never return. She doesn't answer right away. The island. That silence. It changes everything. Moore called out as he climbed. "Ducat, Marshall, MacArthur." His voice carried across the plateau and came back empty. Inside the lighthouse, time had stopped. Not metaphorically, literally. Every clock in the building had wound down, frozen at different moments, as if time itself had given up, waiting for the keepers to return. The beds were made, the dishes clean, the fire cold in the grate, everything in perfect order, except for one overturned chair in the kitchen. It's like when the phone rings at 3 a.m. and you know before you answer that the voice on the other end will change everything. But that wasn't the most unsettling part. Stay with me, and I'll show you the truth. Moore found the clothing inventory, 2 sets of oilskins missing, MacArthur's heavy coat still hanging on its peg. This meant 2 men had gone outside prepared for weather. One had rushed out in his shirt sleeves into a December storm, into Atlantic cold that could kill in minutes. The brass lamp watched from its perch, silent witness to the empty room, its brass surface reflecting nothing. Moore wrote in his report that night. The lamp was in perfect condition, ready to be lit. But I found myself afraid to strike the match. Why would a lighthouse keeper fear to light a lamp? The West Landing told a different story. Destruction, chaos, iron railings twisted like broken fingers, a storage box that had sat 110 feet above sea level, smashed to splinters. But here's what the reports never mentioned. The box had been secured with iron chains, chains thick enough to moor a ship, chains that would take 3 men and crowbars to break. Yet the chains were gone, not broken, gone. A life buoy had been ripped from its moorings, the ropes that held it still tied in perfect knots. as if something had simply lifted it away. The brass lamp grows dimmer. In the archive, even under electric lights, as if it's remembering what it witnessed that December night. Moore stayed on the island for 3 days, keeping the light burning, waiting for answers that never came. He wrote to his sister, "I light the lamp each evening, but I feel like I'm lighting it for ghosts." The lighthouse door creaks in the wind now, even when there is no wind, even when the air is still as death. Listen. Do you hear that? That's where the mystery deepens, in the space between what happened and what the records dare to say. The logbook had one more entry, written in blood. The brass lamp refused to stay cold after that. Moore carried it with him for 3 more days, tending the light, keeping the beacon burning. But every time he set the lamp down, it grew warm, like it was feeding on something he couldn't see. On his final night alone in the lighthouse, Moore made a decision. He would read the rest of MacArthur's journal, the pages he'd been too afraid to touch. Maybe you've done the same. Held on to something you knew would hurt, opened it anyway, because not knowing was worse. December 10th, MacArthur's shaking hand. Ducat found something in the lamp room, a brass key, old, tarnished. Says it was hidden behind the lens, but we've cleaned that lens 100 times. The key was never there before. The brass lamp pulsed, warm, cold, warm, like a heartbeat. December 11th, Marshall tried the key. In every lock, doors, cabinets, storage boxes, nothing. But when he held it near the lamp, the light changed color, from white to blue. Blue like deep water, blue like drowning. Moore's hands trembled as he read. The brass lamp sat beside him, growing warmer, always warmer. December 12th, the key unlocks something else, not doors, not boxes. Time. When Ducat holds it, he sees the island as it was, before the lighthouse, before the chapel, when it was just waiting. Outside, the branches scraped the window. Steady, steady. Moore looked up from the journal. The lighthouse was silent, but not empty. Never empty. He could feel them now. 3 presences in the lamp room above, moving, searching, still tending their light. December 13th. The writing barely legible. Marshall won't speak. Keeps staring at the lamp. Says he can see through it. See what's coming. What's always been coming. The wave that takes everything. The wave that gives everything back. The brass lamp began to glow. Soft blue light. The same blue MacArthur had described. Moore closed the journal, but the words kept echoing. What's always been coming. Do you feel that too? The weight of inevitability, the sense that some endings were written long before the beginning. He climbed to the lamp room. One final time, the brass lamp in his hands. its blue glow, lighting the spiral stairs. At the top, he found them, not their bodies, their shadows. 3 shadows cast by no one, moving around the great lens, still working, still keeping the light. Moore placed the brass lamp. In its housing, the blue glow merged with the lighthouse beam, and for one moment, the shadows turned to look at him. Ducat nodded. Marshall smiled. MacArthur pointed to the window. Outside, a wave was building, impossibly tall, moving impossibly slow. A wall of water that stretched from sea to sky. But this wave wasn't coming to destroy. It was coming to collect, to finish what had been started. On December 15th, Moore understood then. The lamp wasn't just a light, it was a doorway. And the key MacArthur found had opened it. The brass lamp pulsed one final time, then went dark. The shadows faded. The wave dissolved into mist. When the relief ship arrived, the next morning, they found Moore sitting in the lamp room, the brass lamp cold in his lap, his hair turned white. "What did you see?" they asked. Moore looked at the lamp, then at the window, then at something only he could see. "I saw them go home," he whispered. "I saw them finally go home." She closes the drawer, with both hands this time. That's when I knew she was done searching. The lamp holds more than light. It holds the weight of unfinished business. And some business takes more than a lifetime to complete. In 8 minutes, I'll show you the evidence. They tried to destroy. The brass lamp was not the first to go dark on the Flannan Isles. They said it happened once before, in 1865, when the supply ship found the temporary beacon cold, the keeper's hut empty, only a brass compass left behind, still spinning. This is the part I still think about. Not the waves, not the storm, just how the pattern repeats. Saint Flannan knew when he built his chapel in the 7th century. He carved words into the altar stone. Here the sea gives back what it has taken. The monks found those words, read them by candlelight, and fled before dawn. Have you ever felt a place remembering things that happened before you were born? In file number 29, from the Northern Lighthouse Board archives, Inspector MacLeod wrote in 1847, "The islands resist habitation. No prints in the sand come morning, but one breath mark on the glass. It wasn't the first, and it wasn't the last." The brass lamp appears in 3 separate files, always described the same way. Heavy brass, well maintained, found warm to the touch. Despite being unlit for days, the merchant vessel Prosperity lost in fog near the Flannans. When the rescue ship arrived, they found the crew's brass lantern floating, still burning, though it had been underwater for hours. The fishing boat Mary Catherine disappeared during calm weather, found 3 days later, anchored in the Flannan shallows, empty, except for a brass oil lamp, literature warm, casting shadows of men who weren't there. Construction worker Hamish Mackay, building the lighthouse foundation, wrote to his wife, found an old brass lamp in the ruins. Celtic markings, ancient, when I hold it. I see the island as it was, before the stones, before the chapel, when it was just hungry. Mackay disappeared 2 weeks later. They found his tools, his clothes, his brass lamp, still warm. The pattern stretches back centuries, always the same, always brass, always warm, always waiting. Moore understood this when he read the archives, sitting in Edinburgh, 6 months after his rescue. The brass lamp on the desk before him. The lamp doesn't create the mystery, he wrote. It reveals it, shows what was always there, what the island has always been doing. The Flannan Isles were never meant for lighthouses, never meant for men. They were meant for something else, something that feeds on light, on warmth, on the breath of the living. In the old Gaelic, they called it Solas Dubh, the dark light, a beacon that calls to the sea, instead of warning ships away. The brass lamp grows cold when I speak of this, as if it knows, as if it remembers every lighthouse keeper who served the Flannans after 1900, reported the same thing. Voices in the lamp room. 3 voices calling out coordinates. Coordinates that led ships, not to safety, but deeper into the dark. The cargo ship Meridian, following a light that shouldn't have been there, found wrecked on the Flannan Rocks. No survivors, but in the wreckage, a brass lamp still burning underwater. Keeper William Ross, found dead in the lamp room. Heart failure, they said. But his final log entry. The lamp showed me the truth about what happened to the 3. They didn't disappear. They became part of the light. The brass lamp sits heavier now, in my hands, in this archive room, as if it's gathering weight from all the stories it's collected. Moore lived until 1943. Never returned to lighthouse keeping, but every December 15th, he would light a brass lamp and sit with it until dawn, keeping vigil. He called it, making sure they know. Someone remembers. The last entry in his personal diary. The lamp is calling me home, to the island, to the light that never dies. I think I'm ready to answer. They found him the next morning, sitting in his chair, the brass lamp in his lap. Still warm, still glowing. Look at this photograph. Moore's final portrait. Do you see it? The reflection in his eyes. 3 figures standing behind the camera. 3 figures that weren't there when the picture was taken. The wind remembers their names. The island remembers every keeper, every light that's ever burned there. And sometimes, the lights remember back.